a celebration of local textiles from Filipino weavers and embroiderers. The event tackled programs and policies for weaving a brighter future for its market. We now talk to Dr. Julius Leaño, the director of DOST Philippine Textile Research Institute. Good morning, Sir Julius. It's a beautiful day.
Good morning. Yeah, it's a beautiful day indeed.
Great seeing you, and especially I met you at the event. So
Yes.
what a timely time
Follow
for
through.
you, right? For you to be here, and we're both wearing local
Oh, yes.
weaves. So can you tell me more about the local or the recent Telcon that just happened?
Well, the National Textile Convention is a platform for us to gather our stakeholders together. So it was one that brings academics, the artists, even industry was there. And it's sort of like taking a look at how we are doing in the past years and where are we moving. So that's basically what the Textile Convention was. It was successful, very, very successful.
You know, recently we've had a couple of awareness programs like the Happy Fair that happened last year, right, promoting the textile industry. How is the Philippines textile industry doing now compared to back then?
Well, unfortunately, we've seen better days. But the weaving, at least the handloom weaving, is really in the really an upward run now. There's much awareness. There's a huge and a very strong following as far as the new purchasing sector is concerned. The pandemic was very, very transformative. But then as far as the mill-produced textiles, I think we have a long way to go to be able to get back to how we did during the 60s and 70s. But that's exactly where we are right now. We are trying to rebound.
You mentioned that the hand-woven textiles are the ones that are doing particularly well.
Yes.
I could also only imagine that it's harder to produce those because they're hand-woven.
Yes. Yes.
Why do you feel that that particular craft is the one that is sticking out at the moment?
I think it's about the niching thing. Textiles is about economies of scale. Definitely, when you talk about it, we're very far down the line. So the only way for us to survive, the only way for us to differentiate is when we do it in niche. And niche markets, of course, doesn't have to be in scale. They have to be very small in volume, but very high in value, not price, value. And by that, the cultural dimension comes in. And that's exactly the narrative that we bring to the picture. That's why all of these hand weaves and patterns are coming to fore.
You mentioned, sorry if you don't mind, you mentioned that high in value, not necessarily high in price. But I mean,
It still is.
it still is high.
Yeah.
It still is.
What would it take
Yeah.
for the price, at least dito locally? Of
Yeah.
course, when you bring it overseas, siguro the price could be high.
Yeah.
But at least locally, how can we lower the price so Mo can have more local clothes to wear?
Well, if I could wear local clothes every day in weaves, I totally
You
would,
will.
but my wallet will not be happy.
Well, that's the direction. The only point is we must also be just as far as the pricing is concerned. Remember, these textiles are handled by people, by women. So it's really tied to the labor of it, meaning a huge component of that goes to paying your weavers. So if you cannot push it to about 50 pesos per yard, it really won't be sustainable. But then it would go to a certain level that it will be practically affordable. The way to go is for you to produce your own materials locally. Second is for you to be able to consolidate the industry locally. And by that, you could, in a way, control the factors that affect the pricing right now. The more extensive it will be, and I think the more volume they would also produce, it will normalize eventually. The Abra weaves, for example, has already stricken a very good pricing point. They're already below 300 per yard. And that's that's already pretty much affordable. And they're working around that direction because that's the way to go. That's why when you hear binakol, those are the patterns from Abra, for example, they're starting to penetrate mainstream.
But when you say we're starting to penetrate mainstream, do we currently export our textiles right now, or it's just
Well, they're
local?
B2B type, very small volumes. And they get to the United States, for example. The Filipino diaspora is a huge consumer.
Of course.
So they like a lot all of these materials coming from the Philippines, especially the new ones. So they're getting updated with colors and patterns and all of these things. That's why it gets to also move out. But then that's just a very small volume. What we're trying to focus right now is really the capacity of the textile industry to be able to employ more people. I'm talking about thousands and millions of people. So that one has yet to come. But we are pushing the boundaries, so to speak, because that's really where we could realize the value of the industry.
Where do the raw materials come from?
Well, a lot of them are still imported, unfortunately.
Oh, really?
Yes. Even the weaves. Unfortunately, even the weaves, maybe about 80% of the weaves are still from abroad. That's why it's a pity, because the creative industry is using materials to express creative expression, but these are imported materials. That's why we're starting to push Philippine materials to be more available. And I'm referring to Philippine cotton, for example, pineapple, maybe abaca or banana, because
Right.
that's how you try to capture the market. It's just a matter of substitution, and it's just a matter of making it accessible locally. But I think we're making very good strides towards that direction.
You mentioned it a while ago that the 80%, if I'm not mistaken, imported in
Yes.
terms of the weaves. What would it take for the raw material to become more available here? Because we call it Philippine fabrics, but there's
Oh,
a
yeah, I know.
there's an
Understand.
irony
Agree.
that we have
Totally
to
agree.
export the weaves.
Yeah. Well, you have to make the materials locally. That's why in every scale, every part of the chain, you just have to control and be able to stimulate. The government cannot do that, but the private sector can. But I think government can stimulate it. It can catalyze, hubs. That's why we have innovation hubs across the Philippines, making use of our natural materials. We have hubs that produce yarns, making it also accessible in the localities, not necessarily in Manila, because the element of sustainability also comes into the picture. When you have materials moving, then you're earning carbon footprints. You also don't like those, because these are the things that we need to consolidate as we try to rebound from this situation. And I think we're moving quite well.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I know for sure in the Philippines, when you think of Philippine fabric, piña is the
Yes,
first thing
yes,
that comes to
yes,
mind.
yes.
Is there a piña shortage right now? Because piña is so expensive per
yes.
yard or
Yeah.
just per square.
Yeah.
And most of the time now they make it out of husi.
Yes.
So do we
well,
do have a
pineapple is the piña, like the piña, Aklan piña, of course, has a shortage, not necessarily of the raw materials, but you would be surprised, the nutters. These are the people who connects the single threads, the single fiber together. It's a skill that's actually not easy to, you cannot even learn it in school. You just simply have to put all of these fibers together. Those are the gaps in the supply chain. The Department of Agriculture plants, extensively plants this variety of pineapple already. That's why it can already satisfy the market. But then there are things there, primarily in the labor part, where you have also to bridge it. And I think this is where the whole of government approach comes in, because you just have to put all your resources together to be able to address the gaps in the supply chain. But getting there as well. But then, this is the pineapple, the high-end pineapple. You cannot buy it at less than 1,000 per yard.
Right.
So that's why. But then, it has to be made affordable. That's why the Philippine tropical fabric is another version of that pineapple. We blend the shorter staples of pineapple, and these are the pineapples that come from the plantations in Bukidnon.
Yeah.
Okay, the one that we eat. So it's not the crown, but the plant. So the leaves are gathered as part of the maintenance of the plant, and you can extract fibers from it. You cut them in staples, maybe about 4 centimeters long, and then you blend it with carrier fibers to come up with yarns. And these ones could be power loom, meaning you could produce it in 60-inch widths, which could make it to government uniform. So those are ways by which we can actually push the boundaries for our local industry as well.
Yeah, the material is there in the sense that meron tayo,
Yes.
but the process,
Agree.
Yeah.
if it's not quite there,
difficult.
are there
Established.
any programs that the DOST, the Department of Agriculture, is working on to try and tap this particular market? Because it feels very underutilized,
Yes.
to put a word to it.
Yeah, well, definitely we have to liberate materials from the ground. That's the hardest part. How do you get the plant to give you the fiber? That's why we have what we call innovation hubs, as far as the DOS is concerned, located across the Philippines, strategically across the Philippines, to use abaca, bamboo, and pineapple. And then, of course, silk is also another one. You just have to locate all of these facilities and machines all out there, such that people get to access it. And they access it not for necessarily for production, but simply to get to see the innovations available. And maybe it could be replicated by the private sector. It's a stimulant of sort, just to get activities moving. Once you have the fiber, then the yarn facilities are also strategically across the Philippines. There will be four now. By this year, one in Isabela, the other one in Iloilo, the other one will be in North Cotabato, the other one will be in Ilocos Norte. Very strategic locations. These are where handloom weaving are very, very high. So we have to locate all of this such that production becomes even more accessible.
You know, Sir Julius, the world is experiencing an overproduction of clothes.
Yes.
Manufacturers
Yes.
mass producing
Yes.
clothes, right?
Yes.
Which could be good for the textile industry, but a bit harmful for the environment. What are your
Yes.
thoughts on this?
Oh, well, that's why the concept of circularity is the buzzword now. And for the Philippines, who has yet to rebound from this situation, we have to rebound properly. We have to rebound pretty much very well. And that's exactly where sustainability and circularity is anchored into. Unfortunately, we're trying to handle solid waste as far as textiles is concerned, but we never produce them. These are
Yes.
things that come to us as waste materials, sometimes as our ukay-ukay.
Yeah.
And they suddenly, build up, and this solid waste is actually a problem. But then this gives us an opportunity as well, because your Filipinos are just genuinely ingenious. So the idea to make use of all of these materials is part, and the AFP bio collaboration is exactly that.
Yeah.
You cannot imagine how many uniforms is actually left every year, because we continue to produce, we continue to procure uniforms.
Yeah,
But
sayang
where do
lang.
they go? Yes, landfill. Landfill should not be the way to go. There must be a way to circularize it, hence the circular term. And I think that's another proposition altogether. And the Philippines is being positioned in such a way that we have a big say in the circularity market. Very young, but I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, we're looking at all of the fabrics here, and you mentioned circularity, you mentioned being responsible as well, and unfortunately, we're not producing our own weaves as much as we should. But you also mentioned that rebounding. We haven't yet rebounded.
Yes.
Now, for those who are not aware, what are we rebounding from? What are the gaps that you're trying to fill?
Yeah, in terms of production, we don't have yarn production in the Philippines, meaning you have fibers, you have fabric, you have a huge fashion and creative industry, but you cannot produce your own yarns. Means that these are leakages in the supply chain. You get it from somewhere else. It means that your fibers are not also channeled to your supply chain. The yarn production is the hard bottleneck. And I think altogether, the integrated model has ceased already, meaning you don't have to put up all of these together. You can put it up in modular formats, but then it's about consolidating the remaining remnants of the industry. But I think we are pretty much in a very controlled situation right now, because we are trying to capture a captive market without having to overproject. We're looking at government uniforms. We're looking at about 2 million civilian employees that have to use uniforms. And this is a huge market to catalyze the industry to rebound. Once a spinning facility is in, I think the problem is technically solved.
Sir Julius, let's talk about the technological advancements in the textile industry. I know the Philippines have already tapped into the smart fabric. Yes. Can you tell us more about
Well,
that?
we have one Smart Textiles R&D program. Smart Textiles is a huge umbrella definition. And smart means textiles that respond to a stimuli, regardless if that stimuli is also another stimuli. Meaning it could be a reaction to the environment, could be a reaction to persons, could be a reaction to pathogens. So the Smart Textiles program is already there. The advancements are also racing. The pandemic was one good way by which we were able to release one of our technologies, particularly in the water repellent textiles. Before, we could not imagine where you could use a knitted fabric that's water repellent, right? You cannot imagine Filipinos to not wash their clothes. So, but I think it went to the face mask. You don't want
yes. You want to repel the liquid.
the liquid.
Yeah.
So it was one way for us to push that one. That was the low-hanging fruit. The others would include, for example, self-cleaning textiles, which we're looking at for the hospitality industry. Meaning you don't have to wash your table linens. Meaning wine stains would just simply disintegrate or maybe disappear by simply exposing it to the sun.
Okay.
The others would have to be on sensors, for example. They could sense bacterial infection, meaning it could be used for wound dressing, for example. They would change color on certain situations. Those are efforts that we do in such a way that we also diversify textiles, but then are not necessarily fashionable or wearable, but actually functional. And the Smart Textiles
Meron pa
program.
nga the mosquito repellent.
Yes, we also
which
did
is
that.
perfect for the
Yes,
the
yeah.
dengue,
Dengue.
season.
And you could actually replenish it. So meaning that material could be like sprayed again, and then it will last for about a month.
Okay.
So those technologies, those that make it to your lamp shades as well. The lamp also produces heat, right? So heat would also will allow it to dissipate. Even the controlled release systems, like when you rub it, or maybe when it gets in contact with a surface, then the scents would be released or something like that. These are efforts to push it. Going to electronic textiles is another one. So even the more smarter other applications like batteries, for example, supercapacitors. These are these are the things that we did not imagine textiles to get
Yeah.
in.
Yeah,
So
it's
hopefully
amazing.
we'll be getting there as well. very
Textile
soon.
na charger, pwede ba?
Yeah, right? Or wearable, di ba?
Oh, wearable na charger.
Wearable
Put
jacket.
your cellphone sa'yo
wala
like
akong
that.
wala akong baterya, lagay ko dito.
Yes.
Ganyan, no?
Ganyan lang ako, tapos i-charge na.
I mean, I'm just imagining. I feel like
Yes.
the smart textiles would cost a bit more.
Yeah.
Again, they will be very niche, they will be very
Okay.
small, but the value would be very high. So the textiles, as we say, is ubiquitous. You can see it almost everywhere. You cannot imagine a world without textile. That's why we start our video like that.
Yeah.
Imagine a world without it. Really cannot be imagined. That's why we have to realize the value for that, for the Philippines. And I think we're doing quite well. A bit sluggish, but I think we have to strategically position where we have to be good at. But I think government and the private sector and the academia is getting their acts together.
All right.
And Sir Julius, we have to wrap things up
Sure.
here. But then, right before we go, siguro one last thesis statement on where are we sa Philippine textile and what is in store for the Philippine textile industry?
Well, they said that the Philippine textiles is in a sunset industry. Right now, we are looking at the same direction, but I think we're looking at a sunrise. There's a huge potential for all of us. We just have to realize the value of sustainability, the value of circularity, and I think these are the things that would push us. And of course, the cultural dimension, which highlights the rich culture and rich stories that we have in the Philippines. And doing and realizing that value is, I think, the way to go.
Thank you so much, Doc Julius. I'm so excited to see where Philippine textile will grow because I'm your #1 fan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Dr. Julius Leaño, again, the director of DOST Philippine Textile Research Institute.